No.
If for when you get old, Michael.
Pardon?
If for when you get old. When I get old, I'll get an
No, therefore when you've only got one car.
No. No.
It's now live streaming. You're ready to go.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Councillor Jansen, are you there? There he is. All right. I will call to order the regular council meeting of 6:30 p.m. Monday, January 25th, 2021. And I would like to acknowledge that presently I'm and we are at the meeting of the shared traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. Before we begin this evening, because we are electronic, I'm going to ask that everybody unmute themselves and acknowledge that they are here when I ask if they're present. Councillor Day?
I'm here.
Councillor Logan?
Present.
Councillor Baxter?
I am here.
Councillor Parkinson?
I acknowledge that I'm here, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Kobayashi?
I'm here.
Thank you. And Councillor Jansen?
Present. Why am I last?
Moving on to because you turned your camera on last. That's why, and you showed up in my order last. I'm looking for a recommendation that the near-term agenda be received, that the long-term agenda be received, and further that the agenda of the regular council meeting of January 25th, 2021 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Kobayashi. Is there any discussion? Councillor Parkinson.
Your worship, I noticed that in the near-term agenda on February 8th, we have the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund request for 85 Belmont. But I noticed that on the long-term agenda, we have the review and update the affordable housing policy not expected until Q2 of 2021. I thought the understanding was that we would get some options on the housing strategy before we dealt with the 85 Belmont thing.
Mr. Earl?
Thank you, Worship. Hearing that comment earlier from Council Administration will endeavor within the February 8th report with respect to the 85 Belmont request to provide information for Council with respect to what other municipalities in the region do with respect to their distribution of affordable housing monies through policy and what the practice of the city has been in the past. We will do that because we recognize the request for 85 Belmont will come in advance of Council's opportunity to update the policy.
Councillor Parkinson, anything else in regards to that?
I guess I don't understand why what the rush is. I mean, 85 Belmont I don't think has even scratched the ground yet. We should perhaps have the fulsome report and discussion before we decide what to do. I guess that's up to the will of council.
Okay. Okay. We can definitely look at that moving forward. Is there any other questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition, please raise your hands. Nobody opposes. Moving on to 3, public participation. I know we do have at least 2 people who have registered to speak. Members of the public will be provided an opportunity to present concerns or ask questions of council. Comments pertaining to a matter that has been the subject of a public hearing are prohibited where the bylaws related to the matter have not been presented to council for consideration of adoption. The following items have been subject already to a public hearing and should not be commented on. Bylaw number 1840, retail cannabis for 310 Goldstream. Bylaw number 1700-04, Royal Beach sub-area plan, and bylaw number 1873, CD30 zone, Royal Beach. And bylaw number 1852, land use amendment 1764, Island Highway. With that, I will look to staff to introduce the first person who, for public participation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just asking the first caller to unmute, and it is the caller with, oh, there we go. Go ahead, you can introduce yourself to Mayor and Council, please.
Oh, hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. It's Kim Jordison from 3429 Hopwood Place. Tonight, I want to thank you for the opportunity to bring forward some concerns I have. Just bear with me, I'll try and make this really brief. I've been a resident in the West Shore since 1989, where my husband and I chose to raise our family. We've owned a couple homes in Langford before moving to our current subdivision in Colwood, where we were drawn to this place. You know, we even chose a lot that backed onto VMP, so nobody could kind of build behind us ever again. We chose this area because of natural surroundings. The beautiful Havenwood Park next door and the proximity to Dunsmuir and Royal Bay for our daughters to attend. In December, just recently on a walk back from Havenwood Park, much to our shock, we came across a rezoning application sign for a high density mixed use development bordering Havenwood Park on both sides of the MP. It looks like this will include 6 rental apartment buildings, retail shops, restaurants, a drive-through coffee shop, and proposed heights of 7 stories, even 9 if you count the 2 levels of parking. Havenwood Park is a beautiful 40-acre forested park that consists of a network of hiking trails, but you guys all know that. My concern is that the development will significantly impact Havenwood Park, not to mention the current community that resides here. According to the OCP, we live in a hillside neighborhood, and this high-density multi-use development, it doesn't belong here. There is no shortage of available land in Colwood to build on. However, there is a shortage of places with viable ecosystems. Mayor Martin, even you were quoted in the Goldstream Gazette recently stating that the city has prioritized the importance of natures and park systems, and that COVID has forced us to reevaluate the value of natural outdoor settings and reminded us that it offers a refuge of normality during these extraordinary times. If this development goes ahead, Havenwood Park will have issues such as hazard trees, fire buffers, encroachment issues, dumping issues, increased impact on trail use, and impact on invasive species. Havenwood Park is already busier than ever before due to COVID, but this will now become the backyard for hundreds of people living in the apartments. I'd like to request that the City of Colwood conduct a fulsome community impact assessment to evaluate development impacts on the surrounding neighborhoods and park, including a view plane analysis, visual impact of building structures, traffic, parking, noise, and security issues. And I want you all to know that I'm opposed to this proposed rezoning application, and I would encourage all of you to listen to the concerns of residents and to remember why we all work together to develop the current OCP. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I will look to staff for our second speaker.
Hi there, you're at the City of Colwood public participation. If you could please give your name and you can address Mayor and Council.
Good evening. Brian Semenko. My home is at 3432 Hopwood Place. I'm speaking today in regard to the rezoning application for 3476 Wishart Road that is proposing significant changes to the existing CD 22 zone areas 1 and 2. Building 6 massive apartment blocks on this site is inappropriate. Now, massive may seem like an exaggeration, but when you squeeze 6-story buildings in between Woodland Park and single-family homes, the combined mass of 6 apartment blocks will dominate the surrounding area. Not just in appearance, but the sheer number of people and increased traffic. Now, I've looked at the plans and that the developer provided, and apartment block A will be less than 10 feet from my neighbor's backyard. They'll be looking into the 4-story windows of a 6-story building, 7 stories if you count the rooftop patio. Apartment block C will be set further back, but will be at a higher elevation. So when you're standing in the Hopwood Place cul-de-sac, you'll be eye level with the 3rd floor windows. The noise from apartment balconies, the public rooftop areas that I spoke about, private and service vehicles coming and going, I think the noise is going to be constant and horrendous. And there won't be any buffer from the noise and light because all the trees will be gone. To prepare the site, the developer plans to clear the land up to the wetland area. Removing the trees along the northern boundary of Havenwood Park will cause the taller trees in the park to become unstable and in danger of falling. The developer's arborist report recommends removing the Havenwood Park trees along the boundary. This applies to both areas, 1 and 2. I understand where we are in the development application process, that the Colwood Planning Department is reviewing the application and working with the developer's proposal and other agencies to prepare a report for consideration. Before my closing statement, I only have one question. In the developer's info letter that was delivered to the homes within 75 meters of the proposed development, it stated that he has provided the pedestrian crossing at Havenwood Park and has donated hundreds of acres of parkland to the city of Colwood. Now, I know where the pedestrian crossing is, but someone on council should be able to tell me if there were hundreds of acres of parkland donated.
I would look to staff. I don't think, I'm not going to be looking to council to answer that question, but I don't know if staff have any comment in regards to that question.
Mayor Martin, this is Brent Molnar speaking. We can come back to council when it is of appropriate time for council's consideration of this report with the exact park dedication that the developer has provided insofar. He has dedicated a portion of land at the top of his present development off of Wishart Road, and he intends to provide more parkland off of the Veterans Memorial Parkway side of the development. We will return with that exact number, but it is not hundreds of acres. It is acres. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm asking that question because it's a pretty bold statement in writing provided by the developer. So, in closing, I believe this scale of development will have unacceptable impacts on the community, traffic, and Havenwood Park. I'm against this development. I believe there are enough development proposals in motion that should allow Colwood to be selective in what gets approved. That the members of council only support those projects that truly enhance our community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I will look to staff just to ensure. I know I had a list that there were 2. I just want to make sure that there weren't any last minute people who have called in, or is there anyone else wishing to speak?
That was all that was registered to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Mayor's message. I don't have anything to say today, except I did figure out a comment because I did know there would be a couple of people discussing Wishart Road. So the last speaker did allude to him sort of understanding the process, but I am going to just explain the process to everyone who's listening, just so that everybody sort of understands what's happening. So in late December 2020, the city did receive a rezoning application asking council to consider rezoning for 3476 Wishart Road, which is that north of Havenwood Park. To date, the city has received a large response from the community regarding this application. The public's concerns have been received and will be summarized for council to consider them when the application is brought forward for review. A rezoning application typically takes 6 to 8 months or longer. At this time, we are in month 1, where a notification sign has been posted on the subject properties, and the applicant is currently carrying out their public consultation as per the city's policies. Please use this opportunity to communicate to the developer regarding your concerns. As this application progresses to the consideration of committee of the whole, and with following council meetings, including a public hearing, there will be opportunities for public input. We encourage you to sign up for the agenda notifications through the city's website so that you can be aware when this happens. Saying that, I have nothing else to add under Mayor's message. So I will move to 5, which is adoption and receipt of minutes. Looking 5.1, looking for the regular council meeting minutes of January 11th. Looking for a mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Kobayashi, seconded by Councillor Jansen. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Those in opposition, please raise your hands. Nobody opposes. I'm going, and then 5.2 is the Heritage Commission minutes. These just need to be received. These are the minutes from July 9th. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Day, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Discussion? Seeing nobody's hands, I'll call the question. Those in oppositions, please raise your hands. Nobody opposes. Moving on to 5.3, which is the Heritage Commission minutes from October 8th, 2020. May I have a mover and seconder to receive, please? Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Day. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition? No one opposes. Moving on to 6.1. This is Mr. Nyhouse, James Nyhouse, our manager of building inspection and bylaw services, regarding bylaw amendments to bylaw number 1134 and bylaw number 1314. Do staff wish to comment at all before I look for a mover?
If you wish, Your Worship, I can just introduce it.
I'm not seeing any staff. Oh, I see James, Mr. Nyhouse has unmuted himself. I'm not sure if he's trying to comment. Mr. Nyhouse,
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon, Your Worship. I got a weak internet connection tonight. It's a little dodgy. Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening. Amendments is to enable our bylaw enforcement officers to issue fines when education.
I am going to interrupt you, Mr. Nyhouse. Unfortunately, we can't hear you. You're sort of coming in and out.
I'll try to lean closer. Can you hear me now, Your Worship? I have a very bad internet connection.
Yeah, yeah, clearly. Councillor Parkinson just has his hand up, so I'm going to interrupt you just for a moment to see if Councillor Parkinson has an idea to help you. Councillor Parkinson?
Thank you.
Well, I thought it was a very well-written report, and I'd be prepared to move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. There, well done. Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. Do I have a seconder? Moved by Councillor Kobayashi has seconded it. Thank you. That was helpful. Sorry, I'm just clearing. I apologize, everybody. I'm just clearing everybody's hands. Just give me a moment, and then go ahead and now for discussion. Please put up your hands if you're wishing to discuss this motion. Doesn't look okay. My apologies. I guess Councillor. Nope, nobody. Sorry, Councillor Day. You're going back and forth on me. I'm not sure if you're wishing to speak or not.
I am wishing to speak. I just thought that you couldn't see it because I hadn't put my hand down. So I'm speaking to the report and the bylaw 1848, which is attached. And the report does not speak to the addition in the bylaw of parking a recreational vehicle, which is something that I am opposed to. I believe that if you want to park your recreational vehicle in front of your home, you should be able to do so. And therefore, I am unable to support the amendments that are proposed here tonight because I have not been satisfied that there are processes in place that would adequately address some of the fines that are contemplated in the amendments. There is, as far as I can tell, there is no process that is guaranteed here for a review or a challenge to what is stated, and that gives very little opportunity for citizens to address issues other than submitting to what may amount to a fairly heavy-handed approach.
Thank you. Councillor Day, I just want to clarify, you didn't have a question for staff, that you were just making a statement of why you can't support it, or were you looking to ask a question?
Well, I do not understand why the report doesn't speak to the amendment. Perhaps staff could explain that.
Okay. And I hope we can get staff to, but as you know, Mr. Nyos is having a hard time. He might not be able to tonight. Mr. Nyhouse, are you available? Are you able to answer that question?
Can you hear me, Your Worship?
Try. Let's. We'll see.
In answer to Councillor Day, Your Worship, on October 26th, we introduced a bylaw amendment to the street and traffic bylaw permitting the parking of recreational vehicles on city streets and boulevards, and council has subsequently adopted that bylaw. These bylaw amendments are just to establish the fines and to move the schedule of fines into the MTI bylaw.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Day, I hope that answers your question. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to, no, not seeing it. I'll call the question then. Oh, Councillor Jansen wishes to speak. Councillor Jansen, go ahead. No, you do not. Okay. Those in opposition, please raise your hands to the recommendation, excuse me, what has been, my apologies, I'm going to stop for a second. Councillor Parkinson made the recommendation that the staff report titled Amendment Bylaw to Bylaws number 1134 and Bylaw 1312 be received, or 1314, excuse me, be received. Calling the question on that motion. Those in opposition, please raise your hands. Councillor Day. So that motion passes. Moving on to bylaws. We're already at bylaws. Bylaw number.
It's a point of order, Your Worship, but there's 3 pieces to that particular report. I'm not sure if it comes up in bylaws or if it gets done here. I'm looking at the recommendations.
Okay, I was working off the recommendation that's in the agenda, assuming that that's what staff needed. I will go staff, Mr. Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. Items 7.1 and 7.2 in bylaws are the 2 subsequent motions that are recommended in the staff report. So if you proceed with items 7.1 and 7.2, you will capture all 3 recommendations in the staff report.
I apologize, Your Worship.
No, that's good clarification. So I'm going to move then to bylaws. 7.1, bylaw number 1134-05, traffic and highways. This is for, first, second, and third readings. That is moved by Councillor Jansen, second by Councillor Logan. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in oppositions? Councillor Day opposes. Moving on to 7.2, bylaw number 1848, This is the municipal ticket information amendment, Schedule 12. This is for first, second, and third readings. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Baxter, seconded by Councillor Kobayashi. Discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Those in opposition? Councillor Day opposes. Moving on to 7.3, bylaw number 1852, land use amendment 1764 Island Highway. This is for third reading. Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Kobayashi. Discussion? Councillors, I have the two discussion, Councillor Day, then Councillor Baxter.
My question is for staff, and I'm just wondering, there is a significant park adjacent to the riparian area on the adjacent property. And I just would like to know why no consideration has been given to creating an addition to that park.
Thank you very much. Through the mayor, this is Brent Molnar speaking. The application at hand can only consider the land that is subject to the application. And so what has occurred is that for the Nob Hill development, which is up at the top end of the Wilford Road section, that has a portion of park very similar, butting Millstream Creek. That has the same clause to return to the Crown or provide as park, and same way as 1764, as Mrs. Clark spoke of at the onset of the meeting during the public hearing. That park, the developer has graciously agreed to also provide that park to the city. So what we're doing is portion by portion by portion, we are obtaining those parklands. We expect further rezoning considerations for the lands because we know that this is only one of the Galaxy Motor sites out of two, for example. So there's another opportunity when we're piecing it together. Councillor Damish to also want to affect the park's master plan. This linear park that is Millstream Creek is a fish-bearing stream. About 12 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, fish ladders were put up in behind this area, and it would be an environmental asset. And so hence the city is pursuing it piece by piece by piece, and the park's master plan would speak to the greater intent and provide support for such an action. Thank you.
If I could just follow up, why then was that not in the report?
Thank you very much, Councillor Day. It was noted in the report. It was also reiterated in the public hearing documentations just a minute ago, and it was in the presentation provided by staff in concert with the board for first and second reading considerations. Thank you.
I did not see any delineation of parkland on the zoning map or any of the attachments. So I do find that difficult that the community cannot know what staff know.
Thank you very much. On December 20th, 2020, as a precondition to building department, as part of the recommendation as considered by the committee, the owner covenanted and agrees with the city that the land should not be built upon and the owner shall not apply for a building permit until the property owner deposits a reference plan prepared by a BC land surveyor with the BC Land Titles Office, identifying the portion of the riparian area to be returned to the Crown in right of the province as per section 108 of the Land Title Office. That was a condition of council read on December 7th, 2020. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Baxter. Councillor Baxter on mute. Thank you.
Unmute. Yeah, I want to go through how I look at the question of the idea of a walkway through this site. And I think the first thing we have to do is consider who would use it. And that would mainly be, I think, customers and employees of the businesses on this property and probably some adjacent properties. So not a great deal of, a great number of people. The properties from Whale Road down to the Pattison auto dealer they all have their own internal routes. And I'm a bit surprised that this property is not proposing to have its own internal route. It would probably be used by people going from one business to another, or people arriving or leaving the business via the bus on Old Island Highway. And the existence of such a walkway would make this area much more pedestrian friendly. And that is, after all, what we're trying to do everywhere. We're not trying to get rid of the car, but we are trying to make it as easy as possible to make those short trips as a pedestrian that are often actually more convenient than getting the car out. We have to think about the future as well. Wolfert Road will extend further. I don't know if it will connect to Wolfert Road in View Royal, but it will extend further. There will be more businesses on it, and there will eventually be more people walking in that area. I'd like to share my screen now just so I can explain something about the pedestrian route. Okay. So this is simply a line drawing copy of the.
Councillor Baxter,
Yeah.
Baxter, sorry to interrupt, but all you did for us was turn off your camera. So we don't see you now, but we don't actually see what you're showing on the.
Okay.
For the record, he wasn't muted though.
So I will do this verbally. So talking about the potential pedestrian route through the property, it would most simply and cheaply be done by just having people walk where car drivers would normally walk if they were parking their car and walking towards the building, or where pedestrians coming to the site would walk towards the building. So in order to get to either side of building 2, the route you would walk is just what anybody would walk if they were going from their car to the building or back again. So I think we can all accept that that's a safe route and no burden on the developer. It comes to when the people want to go buy the building, and I think we have to bear in mind that as the rezoning currently stands, there would be a 6-meter setback on the side of the building. Council has not yet allowed that the building 2 should go from side to side of the property. Therefore, a 2-meter space for a sidewalk in that 6-meter space is fully in keeping with the rezoning that has currently been applied for, acknowledging that they have stated the intention to ask for a reduction of that setback. And obviously the best way to get a walkway through that area is a set of stairs. And I can understand that a SEPTED review of the property with those stairs in place might raise an issue about, particularly in the dark hours of darkness, a concern about that route. But there are a number of ways that one could deal with that, from the very cheap idea of putting signage saying the sidewalk is closed when the businesses are closed, to perhaps a couple of LED lights or a security camera, which is really low cost these days, and could be paid for by the city. And at the other extreme, perhaps gates at either end of that stairway, which lock at the end of the business day and unlock at the beginning of the next business day, but they have crash hardware so nobody gets trapped in there. Snow and ice might also be a concern. And there are a number of ways of dealing with that, including simple signage stating it's closed when it's icy or snowy, or attention by public works staff and others. So there are a number of ways of dealing with any of the problems that one might perceive with this. But I find myself a bit puzzled as to how the developer feels about it. I haven't heard the developer say at any point that they don't want to do this sidewalk, other than implicitly by the way they've drawn the building. And perhaps the simplest solution of all is if there is a simple stairway corridor in the building, which can be used by employees and customers, and is only open when the buildings are open. I think that would satisfy everybody's needs, because we don't anticipate that there would be a demand for pedestrian traffic when the buildings are not open. So I have seen nothing in this process that tells me why we can't do that, or why we can't just build the sidewalk with a few precautions as required. Therefore, I move that before.
Sorry, Councillor Baxter, I already have a motion on the table. So we'll need to deal with that first.
Okay, fair enough.
To be honest, though, Councillor Baxter, so a couple things. One, so right now we're in bylaws, and so I have a motion to move the bylaw, and then I would just move on to the next. I also, there's this, it's an uncomfortable levelness of just concern around receiving new information, because the public hearing for bylaw number 1852 is now closed. And so we just start to get close to, are we receiving new information now, or is this information that has already been provided and you're looking for clarification? And I have to be very careful with that. I'm going to be looking to staff to give me direction on that as well.
Well, I would like to know what the new information is in all that. I would have thought that was all pretty obvious from what we've heard.
Well, you're asking for the developer to share their opinion. That would be new information, because that hasn't been shared previous to public hearing, and it gets close to that line. I'm not saying we've crossed it by any means, and I will be looking to staff for direction on that. I'm just saying that we need to be very careful that we're not receiving or requesting new information.
Well, if I may, I just think that if we have a public hearing and then can't have any discussions about this, what is the purpose of the public hearing?
I'm not disagreeing with you, Councillor Baxter. I'm just saying that there's that line that you are very well aware of that we can't cross, right? And so it's a matter of me trying to determine as chair, when is this new information and when is this not new information? And I'm just asking for your patience to try and figure out what it is. So I will look to staff. Mr. Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would look to the advice of our development experts, either Brent or Carrie, to provide specifics.
Thank you very much, Mr. Earl. This is Brent Molnar speaking, Mayor Martin, and through the chair. So this is the walkway running through the building. Because of the 3 levels of grade separation, it's very, very challenging to accommodate into the interior of the building. There's simply just grade separation there. And as what staff have done instead is what we've worked our way around the building to look at the desire lines and the routes of travel where people are going to either the commercial district or the adjacent lands to Fuca or down or up the road, agreeing that our active transportation strategy is obviously critical, and pedestrian movements are very critical. It's difficult to accomplish in the building And if council wish to pass consideration in relation to the lands, you're more than welcome to. In consideration for what we're able to talk about and what's new information relevant to the public hearing process, continuing on a discussion about a walkway, which although it hasn't been resolved, has been the subject of discussion, would not be considered new information germane. But speaking about the intricacies of the building is not a factor of zoning at this present time. So it's more about the interconnectivity of that walkway as a goal as resolved by council. And we're more than ready to answer further questions or assist in that nature. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that advice, Councillor Baxter, I will look back to you on how you would like to proceed.
Well, you need to proceed with the motion you have, and then I would like to make an amendment.
To that motion?
Yeah.
Again, I guess I would look to staff. Once I call the question, I don't think you can amend it. You would need to amend it previous to that. And I'm not sure, I'm not familiar with amending a bylaw at third reading. I don't know if that's possible or not. Again, I will look to staff.
Well, let me put the wording and then you can check it with staff. Okay,
Sure.
So what I need to do is move an amendment to the motion asking that before fourth reading, a public route through the site be provided, be guaranteed as part of the process.
Okay. Staff, can somebody tell me if that motion is in order? Or amendment, excuse me, is in order?
Sorry, I need to hear it back in a little bit clearer format. We were in a discussion about what is applicable. Use and density is the factor for consideration.
I also, sorry, Mr. Molnar, I also see Mr. Earl's hand up, so perhaps Mr. Earl has a comment.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. From my perspective, that wouldn't be an amendment to this motion. That could be a subsequent motion that would provide direction to staff.
Okay.
So just for my clarification, Mr. Earl, my experience previous to this when I'm doing this is I don't usually have additional motions under bylaw. Usually I will, bylaws will either move forward or not move forward. So is this a normal process and this isn't putting us offside by doing that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw is the section in the agenda where we put all the bylaws that you're giving readings to this particular evening or this particular session of council. Council is free to make motions that are beyond bylaw considerations within this section of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Then Councillor Baxter, what I will do then is call the question eventually and then look to you for an amendment or an additional motion post.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Day, do you wish to comment?
Thank you. I was going to ask a question, but my question has been answered by Mr. Earl that because I was going to be very concerned if we were in a take it or leave it situation with our bylaws. I would like to just confirm that this is for the zoning, that we are at third reading, and that the motion will not be ruled out of order if it comes after this motion.
Sorry, excuse me. Are you talking about Councillor Baxter's?
Yes.
No. Yeah, I've already said that once this is voted on, I would go to him.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parkinson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I share Councillor Baxter's concerns about access to the site. I think it would be a real enhancement for the community. But I like this project. I like a lot of things about it. Very interested in the motion. I hear the pushback from the staff who say they've looked at it, say it's difficult. So hopefully, Michael, when you make the motion, it'll be just to provide guidance. If it's as difficult as staff seems to believe it is, then so be it. If it's not that difficult, perhaps it's worthy of further consideration. But and the other thing that's on my mind, and it's probably worth discussing here, is that if we don't end up with a walkway, and again, that's I don't know if we will or not, it would certainly send a message that I think is probably a good one to send, that the OCP is not a cast in stone document that we have to blindly follow, that it's guidance, and that the final decisions will rest at the council table based on whatever we want, essentially. And while the OCP is a great document, I don't think we should go forward saying whatever's in there is sacrosanct and we must follow it. So, I think that's a good message to send out to the community. So, but I think we should also acknowledge if at the end of the day there is no walkway through the site, that's one of the things we're saying. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be brief. I'm hoping you can call this vote so we can maybe wrap up this and then fold into Michael, where I think there'll be some Michael's motion, where I think there'll be some more discussion.
Okay, thank you. So I take it you're asking me to call the question. I will call the question. Those in opposition to the motion, which is to move third reading, Councillor Day opposes. Councillor Baxter.
So I move that before adoption of the bylaw, that the developer provide that the developer agree to provide a pedestrian route through this site from Wilford Road to Old Island Highway, and that council be willing to shoulder some of the burden of that if felt necessary. That's it.
Okay, I'm a little concerned about the motion, Councillor Baxter, just from a standpoint of it's not very clear. Like we're sort of in vagueness. For example, the last part of that left it really sort of not clear, I'm sure, from a staff level of trying to understand what that meant. So I would just like to, I think I'm more going to try and assist you to try, Mr. Earl, perhaps will have a recommendation on the motion to achieve what Councillor Baxter is hoping to achieve. Mr. Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. Would Councillor Baxter be comfortable with that prior to further readings of this bylaw, that staff return with options for pedestrian permeability through this site?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm hoping staff captured that. Councillor Parkinson, were you seconding that motion, or were you looking to discuss? Because I'm sorry, I'm gonna look. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Park.
I was going to second Mr. Baxter's motion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Molnar, I see that. Did you wish to comment on that? I just saw your name up there.
Yes, thank you very much. We have reviewed the options quite extensively in the report and the presentations that have been so far being brought to council for consideration. We would need further detail in regards to what options specifically would like to be reviewed. We are more than willing to come back to council, but we would need a very clear resolve on what it is that you are looking to see. We have communicated with the developer, and in building is challenging, if not near very difficult to the design. The developer has considered, because this has been on the table from, as I say, when we started commencing our discussions with the developer, an external walkway that is cavernous, and it's again doesn't meet any of the principles that have already been raised for council consideration in regards to this walkway. Staff have suggested for council consideration that there are adjacent areas south, which were raised before the public hearing, that are more suitable, more aptly suitable, without the conflict of lighting, the extra attributes of safety in terms of maintenance, and other sort of facilities that are on adjacent lands that are not related to this development. We are more than willing to receive direction from council that staff should pursue outside of this consideration those land interests, in which case we would likely return to council with an in-camera report speaking of those interests and the amendment to any particular rights of ways and agreements in place. So we would need clarity in terms of the resolve, and as of yet, don't know what that would be in the format of. Thank you.
May I speak to that?
You may, Councillor Baxter. I do have two hands up, so I'm coming back to you just because you were the mover, and that if you're looking to clarify the motion, I will not. I would ask that you don't speak to it because I have to allow other councillors to speak to your motion as well.
Well, I think I need to speak to it to clarify it so we know what we're talking about.
Okay, go ahead.
So Mr. Molnar mentioned that spoke to the cost of maintenance as if maybe that was considered, that it takes the thing right out of consideration, whereas I don't see that the cost of maintenance takes it out of consideration. Council may decide it doesn't want to adopt that, but I don't see that it takes it out of consideration. Neither do I see conflict in lighting. Lighting's normal in walking areas. And unless there's some massive problem like the stairway would simply be too long, I don't see that there's an issue here. I think everything I spoke to in my speech leading up to this motion explains how, through normal processes, these problems can be dealt with, albeit at a cost.
Okay, thank you. I got Councillor Jansen, then Logan, then Kobayashi.
Thank you, Worship. We've batted this one around a couple of times now, and I'm a bit conflicted. I understand there is some language in the OCP that applies. I also understand that staff have looked at this, and I believe it's my responsibility to support what staff are telling us. So I'm not sure if another re-examination is required or not, but it troubles me further to say that we will pawn off some kind of route for pedestrians to a neighboring property owner without careful consideration. In my mind, if this is something that's in the OCP and it's not part of the plan, then perhaps there's a route where we can take through, and someone's gonna have to help me out here with the legalities, but through amenities contributions or what have you to support a pathway or pedestrian route at a neighboring location. I don't think it's good enough just to say that we'll impose that upon a more suitable piece of property held by another owner at some point in the future when finally it's up for redevelopment. Those are some of my thoughts, and I'm struggling with this a bit. I'm hoping we can gain some clarity perhaps from staff on my suggestion there.
Okay, I've got basically everybody's hands up now. So Councillor Logan, you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I'm glad Councillor Jansen mentioned that, we've actually kicked this can a couple of times around and around. And I think staff did a really good job to demonstrate why this isn't a suitable location. I mean, clearly, even if there was a walkway there, it's only accessible to some, not for all. And those some would be able-bodied people that can walk up and down a significant and a steep flight of stairs. And really, I'm not, I don't think that's appropriate. And further, I'm not sure about this location. And I appreciated the numbers on the topographical, the map earlier that showed the elevation changes, and that really hammered home to me that this particular site is not an appropriate site for that kind of walkway. And I do appreciate the linkages, but I do also have some concerns about from a SEPTED perspective. in that particular area as well. And really, I question whether it's even appropriate to be discussing some of these things when we're discussing about the issue of land use, and I'm hard pressed not to approve this bylaw, because by opposing this bylaw, you're saying you want gas stations there, you want more car lots there, you don't want better uses for our main strip. So I appreciate the context and the intent behind the motion, but I think the elevation and the siting here just is not appropriate at the moment, and we've got somewhere of in upwards of 400 meters of island highway there that we can do some more planning on, and probably some more consultation with developers and landowners to have a better connection that is accessible for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I do see the developer is wishing to comment. Normally I wouldn't, but I will allow him to. Chris, did you want to make a quick comment?
I did, yes. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is something we definitely considered when first raised. And if I can share my screen really quickly, I have a quick sketch of what this might look like that we had an architect look at, if that's all right with everyone here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here. So this is just a quick sketch we had them take on the proposed location here. Now, as it was kind of alluded to, but we just wanted to make it really clear, there is quite a cavernous walkway in here. And, you could put signs saying no access, you could put lighting in there, but a lot of the issues that Councillor Baxter raised are definitely prevalent. And it should be noted that that will be at the liability of the future owners of this site. And that's not something that they'd be interested in holding, notwithstanding the large retaining wall required on this side of the property. The access and use would really not be used by any of the future owners of the building. And as staff alluded to in their presentation, there are far better places to be placing this, with the property to the south that has a far less of a grade change. And we just think that, looking up here, this isn't an inviting walkway space for anyone. And aside from the construction costs, the increased timeline, the loss in area that we would have, it really just comes down to a liability issue of this particular walkway here and all the SEPTED concerns that would come with it. And I know Brian's in the call with me here as well, and he might have something else he'd want to join in on that, if I may allow him to speak.
Certainly.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks for that, Chris. I just want to add, given just to be clear, we don't think it's a great idea given the grade and given what's required to construct it, and moreover, given the utility of it. How many people are actually going to use a stairwell which runs 15 meters high, which is that deep between the retention and the building? So. Again, we think frankly that it's a terrible idea, and we have, but to be clear, we have considered with staff and gone over it and tried to find a solution.
Thank you, Councillor Kobayashi.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just, I don't mean to be rude or anything here, but it just seems like we're flogging a dead horse. This has been brought up, though. This was addressed, and this is where I'm really confused myself personally. We did the vote, and hence first and second reading. So I'm really confused about this, and I did take the opportunity because it was a good idea, Michael. I'm definitely not gonna doubt what you say here. It is a really good idea, but I did go have the opportunity now to look at the site, and I went, holy mackerel, what a challenge this would be. Aside from maybe sticking a big freight elevator in there, I just don't think it being practical. So, I will stand with the staff on this one. And I think the alternatives were looked at. We did address it. And it just seems like we're going back in a circle again. I don't know. That's just my opinion, but I am not going to support your motion, however. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Day, then Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. I'm going to be very quick with this, but in my opinion, appropriate access is required for both cars and people. That's just the way it is. And it is a requirement that you don't kick the can further down the road to the next guy to sort it out. I do think that this is going to be important in the future, and you only have to look at how many people are using the crosswalk to go across Island Highway and either visit the businesses on one side or visit the restaurants on the other. There's a lot of community connections in this area which have been prevented for years by a busy road and a lack of opportunity for access. So I do think that if we don't have access for both cars and people over a site, then we have failed in our job to plan appropriately the way the community asked us to in the OCP. Thank you.
Councillor Parkinson? Excuse me, Councillor Baxter, then Parkinson.
Just two short things. One is I think we need to be careful about the argument. We've already discussed this, because it's certainly my habit, and I think it, and I encourage it in other councillors, is that if you want to change something or you oppose something, don't hold up the bylaw. Let the discussion continue while the bylaw goes through its stages. And I think that's what we all want, or most of us want. We don't want to hold up the process, but we want to carry on the discussion. Well, if we're not allowed to discuss it more than once, then that leaves me with no option but to vote against a bylaw if there's something I want to amend. But I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's better to keep the discussion going. And if the majority wants to kill it right now, it gets killed right now. And we're done, and we didn't hold the bylaw up. The other thing is, if it's a public walkway, it's my understanding, my habit when I was working, that the city always took on the liability, not the property owner. If it's a public walkway, the city has the liability. That's fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parkinson?
So still a little confused on this one, and it's interesting that Mr. Molnar struggles with what report to bring back, and then announces all the stuff that he's analyzed. But I don't really think. I mean, he's looked at it. He's satisfied. Presumably, if it was enough to satisfy him, it's enough to satisfy the rest of us, and presenting that as a report is probably all we're asking for here. I mean, if this is an issue worthy of our discussion, we should probably at least all come to a common understanding what we're talking about. I was a little surprised to hear the developer talk about a 15-meter high stairway. I got to admit. Hello.
The only one moving. Hold on. Sorry, I didn't see. Everybody froze on me except for myself. Councillor Parkinson, sorry, Councillor Parkinson, are you talking right now?
Not right now. Well, now I'm talking.
Sorry. Did it freeze on anybody else, or was it just me? My apologies, Councillor Parkinson. Everybody froze, and it was like I can't hear anything. My apologies.
Okay. Well, again, I'm just going to end off as we heard the developer say there was a 15-meter high stairway, and he showed some sketches, so they've looked at it. Good on him. Maybe it's all been addressed to everybody's satisfaction, and we just need that information in front of us concisely so we can all agree on it. I guess I had assumed it was going to be, the building 2 is sort of the lower level comes off of Wilford, and the upper level comes in off of the Island Highway. I thought that these strata units were going to be, I was guessing 6 or 7 meters high, 15 meters high. Those are pretty tall buildings, and then I guess a few stories on top of that. That's what they're going to build. Good. I don't really see an issue here. If people say they've looked at it 6 ways to Sunday, it's a concern to council. It's something I think the OCP has guided us towards. I don't think it would be a major undertaking to present all the information that's been looked at before, and we're probably satisfied with it. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. I don't have anyone else hands up, so I'm going to look at calling the question. I'm going to look to staff. I'm hoping somebody on staff have written down the motion, just so that it can be read back, please, one final time.
I have, Mr. Mayor, and it was prior to adoption of Bylaw 1852 that staff return with options for pedestrian permeability through this site.
Excellent. Just confirming, Councillor Baxter, that was your motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I will call the question then. Those in opposition, please raise your virtual hands. Councillor Logan, Councillor Jansen, Councillor Kobayashi, and Mayor Martin oppose. The motion fails.
Democracy has worked.
There we go. Moving on then to 7.4, bylaw number 1850, main sewer LAS enlargement 3371 Wishart Road, first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Jansen. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition, please raise your hands. Nobody opposes. Moving on to 7.5, bylaw number 1851, West Sewer LAS enlargement 3371 Wishart Road, first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Kobayashi. Looking for a seconder, please. Seconded by Mayor Martin, just to keep us going. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition, nobody opposes. Moving on to 7.6, bylaw number 1853, main sewer LAS enlargement 3351 Marianne Crescent, first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Jansen. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition. Oh, excuse me. There's a Day? No, I was being quick. My apologies. Councillor Day?
Sorry, you just misspoke. The address is 3353 Marianne Crescent, not 3351.
Thank you. You are correct. And my apologies for misspeaking. I'll lower hands. So coming back to that, so we are on 7.6, which is 3353 Marianne Crescent. Is there any discussion for second and third readings? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody has opposed. Moving on to 7.7, this is bylaw number 1854, West Sewer LAS enlargement 3353 Marianne Crescent for first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Baxter, seconded by Councillor Jansen. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Oh, excuse me, Councillor Jansen, you wish to discuss? Oh, no, he put down his hand. Okay, those in opposition, please raise your hands. Nobody opposes. Looking for adjournment. Oh, that's what was going on. Looking for adjournment. Yeah, today's race was won by Councillor Logan, even though Councillor Kobayashi tried to get in there. Seeing no discussion, those in opposition, please raise your hand to adjourning. Nobody opposes. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.